The Forgotten Village. A slow-burning horror that builds dread with each twist. In the forgotten folds of the Carpathian Mountains, where satellites fail, maps grow blank, and locals speak in hushed tones, there is a legend that refuses to die. They call it Nadmor, a village that once existed, a village that doesn't anymore, at least not on paper. But Ethan believed it was real, not because of old folklore or grainy photographs, but because of a single cryptic sentence he stumbled upon in a government-restricted archive. Erased, Nadmor, Unt 78, all traces removed, do not investigate. And just like that, Ethan was hooked. A self-proclaimed urban explorer, an amateur documentarian, Ethan ran a modest YouTube channel that catered to a niche crowd of truth seekers and paranormal fans. His channel had seen modest growth, abandoned asylums, Cold War bunkers, underground cities. But nothing had the same pull as this. Nothing screamed dangerous truth quite like a village that had been deliberately forgotten. With just a backpack, a solar-powered camera rig, a week's worth of supplies, and his old military compass, Ethan set off into the Carpathians. But nothing could have prepared him for what he found, or for what followed. The trek began smoothly. The morning air was brisk, filled with the earthy scent of pine and moss. His camera captured everything, Ethan talking to the lens, cataloging his supplies, noting the coordinates. But something was off. The further he walked into the forest, the more twisted the trees became. Their branches curled unnaturally, as if reaching for something, or someone. At first, he thought it was his imagination. Then his compass began to malfunction. The needle spun slowly at first, then violently, refusing to point anywhere at all. No GPS signal, his phone said. No service. Of course. But Ethan pressed on. He found an old road, broken, overgrown, cracked like skin, and began to follow it. That's when he noticed the markers. Stone pillars, carved with strange symbols, some glowing faintly even in daylight. No moss. No wear. He paused, zooming in on one. Looks Slavic, he murmured into the lens. Or pre-Christian. Maybe even Dacian. The wind shifted, cold and sudden. When he turned around, the road behind him was gone. Not overgrown, not hidden. Gone. Trees now stood where he had walked minutes ago, thick and dense, with no sign of his trail. He laughed nervously. Okay, this is either the best prank ever, or I'm hallucinating. He checked his compass again, still spinning. I'm not lost, he told himself. I have the sun. I can retrace my... He stopped. Ahead, in the thickening fog, a figure stood motionless. A child, barefoot, pale skin, black, empty eyes. Ethan blinked. The figure didn't move. The camera recorded in eerie silence. Then, just as he took a cautious step forward, the child vanished. No rustle, no movement, just gone. That night, he camped in a small clearing. The fire offered little comfort. The trees seemed to press closer when he wasn't looking. I think I found Nadmor, he whispered into his recorder. Or what's left of the road leading to it. I saw... something. A child. I know how it sounds. I'm not claiming ghosts, maybe trauma, maybe a survivor of something. He paused, then added quietly. Or maybe the legends were right. They say people who go to Nadmor forget how to return. He didn't sleep much. By morning, the forest felt different. Dead quiet. No birdsong, no insects. When he looked at the footage from the previous day, something caught his eye. At the exact moment he saw the child, the audio warped. A whisper, barely audible, seeped through the static. Stay! Ethan tried to leave. He followed the sun, marked trees, tried carving arrows into bark, but each path led back to the same marker, the same tree. It felt like the forest was folding in on itself. By the third loop, panic set in. He screamed into the trees, threw his camera, wept, and then he heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Behind him. He turned. Nothing. But when he reviewed the camera feed, a frame, just one. In it, a pale face just behind his shoulder. Eyes black as tar. Mouth smiling. Too wide. And that's how the legend of Nadmor truly begins. The first night had stripped Ethan of sleep, leaving him tangled in fear and confusion. Yet the morning sun brought little relief. The forest seemed colder, more oppressive, as if Nadmor itself was watching, waiting. His camera's battery flickered low, and his supplies were running thin. Still, he refused to turn back. There was something here, something the government wanted buried forever. Something powerful. Ethan's fingers trembled as he packed his camp. The faint whisper from the night before echoed in his mind. Stay. He swallowed hard, then ventured deeper into the thicket, tracing the cracked road with unwavering resolve. The stone markers became more frequent, their glowing runes brighter, like warnings or guardians. Suddenly, his foot struck something solid beneath the moss. He knelt down and brushed the dirt away. It was a weathered metal box, locked tight and almost swallowed by time. With no tools, he tugged at the rusted latch until it gave way. Inside, folded parchments cracked as he unfolded them. Strange diagrams, written in a language Ethan couldn't decipher, yet symbols matched those on the markers. One phrase stood out. Sacrificium vitae. Offer the life, or become the lost. His heart raced. Offer what? To whom? And what was the lost? As he stood, a crackling sound burst from the forest floor. The ground beneath him shifted, revealing a narrow stone staircase descending into darkness. His camera light barely pierced the gloom, but Ethan's curiosity pushed him forward. The stairs led to a cavernous underground chamber carved from the mountain rock itself. Ancient walls bore frescoes depicting grotesque rituals, figures cloaked in shadow, bound children, flickering flames, and an imposing deity with eyes like burning coals. Ethan's breath hitched as he realized the horror painted before him. Nadmor's people had worshipped something dark, something they believed demanded sacrifice. A central altar stood in the chamber's heart, stained dark with what looked like dried blood. He raised his camera to record, whispering, This is why Nadmor was erased, because they sacrificed people, to stay hidden, to survive. Suddenly, the air shifted. The flicker of his torch revealed movement, a shadow darting just beyond the beam. Ethan froze. Then, a voice, soft, almost a whisper. Leave. His blood ran cold. Outside the chamber, Ethan stumbled back into the sunlight, heart pounding. He needed answers, but who could explain the offer the life warning? The child he'd seen? The shadowed figure in the forest? Determined, Ethan made for the nearest village he could find, an old town several kilometers from Nadmor's lost location. The locals were wary, eyes flickering with suspicion whenever he mentioned Nadmor. He found an old woman sitting by a fire outside a creaky wooden house. Are you from here? He asked gently. She nodded slowly. Do you know Nadmor? Her face darkened. You shouldn't speak of it. It is cursed. Ethan's recorder was on, capturing every word. She told him stories of disappearances, of families who vanished overnight, of children who wandered into the woods never to return. But most feared the Pact, she whispered, eyes glinting with fear. The villagers once made a terrible bargain to protect themselves from outsiders, but the price was eternal. Back at his motel that night, Ethan reviewed the footage. A cold wind rattled the window. His screen flickered. And there it was again. The pale child. This time, standing right behind the old woman in the recording, smiling wider than should be possible. Ethan's hands shook. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. The next morning, fueled by a restless urgency, Ethan returned to the forest's edge. The fog rolled in thick and heavy, obscuring his path. He followed an animal trail marked by broken branches and faint footprints, signs of life in the dead woods. Suddenly, a soft melody drifted through the mist, a lullaby, ethereal and haunting, echoing off the trees. Drawn like a moth to flame, Ethan followed it. The song led him to a clearing. In the center, a ring of stones circled an ancient oak, twisted and gnarled. At the base of the tree lay a bundle, wrapped in cloth, pulsating with a faint, unnatural glow. He approached cautiously. Unwrapping it revealed an old, leather-bound journal, soaked in damp earth. Inside, pages detailed the life of a young woman named Anya, a Nadmor villager who documented the dark rituals and the growing dread that consumed her home. Anya wrote of the Pact, a desperate attempt to survive an unknown terror by offering the village's children in exchange for safety. But it came with a curse. The children never truly left, their souls bound to the forest, waiting, watching for the next to fall. Her last entry was a warning. If you read this, turn back. The forest keeps its own. The lost are many, but none return. Ethan's heart pounded as he heard footsteps behind him again. Turning, he saw the pale child, now joined by several others, ghostly, silent, their eyes black pits. They circled him slowly, the lullaby rising in a chilling crescendo. He raised his camera, recording every moment. And then, a voice, stronger this time. Offer the life, or become the lost. The forest didn't just hide Nadmor, it swallowed it whole. Ethan stood at the edge of the whispering woods, the very place the villagers warned him to avoid. The trees here were ancient, their gnarled limbs like twisted fingers clawing at the thick fog that rolled in like restless spirits. His breath came out in puffs, merging with the cold mist. The journal's warning echoed in his mind. The forest keeps its own. He adjusted his backpack, steadying the weight of his gear and the ever-present camera. With every step he took into the woods, a strange sensation wrapped around him. A weight, a whisper carried on the wind, a voice just out of hearing. The deeper Ethan went, the thicker the fog became, blurring the edges of reality. Branches creaked overhead, and leaves rustled though no breeze stirred. He stopped, eyes scanning the dim light. From somewhere above, a soft whisper floated down. Come, come, Ethan's skin prickled. The voice was feminine, hauntingly sweet, yet soaked in sorrow. He called out, Who's there? Only silence answered. He pressed on. After what felt like hours, the trees parted into a small glade, bathed in an unnatural silver light. In the center stood a statue, weathered but unmistakable. It depicted a woman holding a child, her face serene but sorrowful. Carved at the base were words in the same strange script as the parchments. To protect is to lose. To lose is to remember. Ethan knelt to examine the ground. Fresh footprints encircled the statue, too small to be human. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept past, and a child's laugh rang out, echoing eerily between the trunks. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. He raised his camera, sweeping the glade. Hello, if anyone's here, I'm not here to hurt you, he whispered. The laughter faded. Then, a shadow flickered between the trees, a figure, pale and swift. Ethan darted forward, but the figure vanished. He cursed under his breath, frustration mingling with fear. The woods seemed alive now, watching. He continued, now moving cautiously. The trail twisted toward a ruined cabin, half swallowed by vines and moss. Inside, the air was thick with decay. Broken furniture lay scattered, and the walls bore strange scratches, deep gouges that looked like desperate claw marks. Ethan's flashlight caught something on the floor, a faded photograph, torn and water-stained. It showed a family, a woman, a man, and 2 children, all smiling. Written on the back was a single word, remember. As he pocketed the photo, a sudden noise made him whirl around. A low growl, barely audible, vibrated through the floorboards. Then movement, eyes glowing faintly from the shadows. He backed into the corner, heart racing. A creature emerged, twisted, gaunt, its eyes burning with a terrible hunger. Ethan's breath hitched. It snarled, revealing sharp teeth. He fumbled for his camera, flashing the light. The creature hissed, retreating into the darkness, but not disappearing. Ethan fled the cabin, running blindly through the woods, branches scratching his face and clothes. He didn't stop until the trees thinned, revealing the edge of the forest. Panting, he glanced back. The woods were silent again, but he knew better. Back at his motel, Ethan reviewed the footage. The creature's eyes gleamed in the dark, and just before it vanished, the camera caught something chilling. An imprint on the peel behind it. The same symbol from the altar. The symbol of the Pact. Ethan's mind raced. The Pact wasn't just a story. It was alive, embedded in the forest, in the people, in the shadows. And now it hunted him. That night, he barely slept. Whispers filled the room, distant but clear. Remember, remember. Ethan pressed his palms to his ears, but the voices only grew louder, weaving through his dreams. In the morning, he resolved to uncover the truth behind the Pact, no matter the cost. The morning sun was pale, filtered through the heavy curtains of Ethan's motel room, but inside the shadows felt thicker, heavier, as if the forest's darkness had followed him home. Ethan sat at the desk, the flickering glow of his laptop illuminating the worn journal beside it. His fingers traced the strange symbols and cryptic warnings, each word deepening the knot in his stomach. He knew he couldn't run from the Pact, not anymore. He had to understand it. Hours passed as Ethan scoured every record he could find. Ancient texts, local archives, whispered rumors captured in grainy videos, and faded letters. The village of Nadmor had once been prosperous, until the Pact was made. It was an ancient agreement, forged centuries ago between the village elders and a dark entity that dwelled in the forest. In exchange for protection and bounty, the villagers promised something precious: their loyalty, their silence, and the souls of those who dared defy the forest's rule. The Pact was a curse disguised as a blessing. Over time, Nadmor's people prospered, but at a terrible cost. Every generation, one child vanished into the whispering woods. The forest claimed them, forever binding their souls to the entity's dark will. The villagers called these children the Lost. They became whispers, shadows that haunted the trees, neither alive nor dead. Ethan's heart pounded. The journal had mentioned this, but never spelled it out so clearly. Suddenly, a realization hit him like a thunderclap. The woman in the statue was the mother of one of the lost. Her sorrow was eternal, because she could never save her child. Determined to break the cycle, Ethan packed his gear again and set off toward the village library. The building was ancient, dust motes swirling in the air like tiny ghosts. Inside, rows of bookshelves held secrets older than time. An elderly librarian, her eyes sharp and knowing, watched Ethan carefully. "You seek the truth," she said softly. "But beware. The truth here can consume you." Ethan nodded and pulled out the journal. The librarian's expression grew grave. The pact is more than a curse. It is a bond forged in blood and fear, maintained by sacrifice and silence. She guided him to a hidden room beneath the library, where the oldest records were kept. Scrolls, maps, and journals lay scattered, chronicling the history of Nadmor and its doomed pact. Hours slipped away as Ethan pieced together a terrible story of greed, desperation, and betrayal. The village leaders had once tried to break the pact, but the forest fought back. Fires consumed the land, crops withered, and madness crept into the minds of the villagers. The only way to appease the dark entity was to offer a child, every generation, without fail. Ethan shuddered, recalling the faces in the photograph, the smiling family who had lost their children to the forest. His mind raced to the strange footprints, the laughter, and the creature in the cabin. All signs pointed to one chilling truth. The pact was still alive, still hungry. As dusk fell, Ethan left the library with a heavy heart. The village seemed to watch him, eyes peering from dark windows, whispers trailing behind his every step. He knew now that to save Nadmor, he had to confront the entity itself. That night, armed with everything he had learned, Ethan returned to the Whispering Woods. The forest greeted him with silence, but the weight of unseen eyes pressed in. He reached the heart of the woods, where the earth was cracked and blackened, a place the villagers called the Hollow. There, carved into the ground, was the symbol of the pact glowing faintly in the moonlight. Ethan's breath caught. From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked in darkness, with eyes like burning coals. The entity. It spoke, its voice a haunting whisper that seemed to echo inside Ethan's mind. "You seek to end the pact." Ethan swallowed his fear. "Yes, no more children should be lost." The entity laughed, a sound both terrible and sad. "The pact is eternal. It lives because of the village's fear. Break the fear, and you break the pact." Ethan realized the truth. The curse was not just in the woods, but in the hearts of the people. To end it, he needed to awaken the villagers, to shatter the silence that bound them. Suddenly, the entity reached out, and Ethan felt a coldness that threatened to freeze his soul. But he stood firm. He raised his camera and shouted, "I will expose the truth. The world will know." The forest trembled. The symbol flared brighter, and then silence. The entity vanished. Ethan stumbled back, exhausted but victorious. The pact's hold had weakened, but the fight was far from over. He knew he must return to the village and awaken its people before the darkness reclaimed them all. The screen flickered to life in a dimly lit room, cluttered with old equipment and dusty books on paranormal phenomena. A new voice, calm yet edged with curiosity, spoke softly to the camera. "Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I came across this footage of Ethan's investigation into the Nadmor woods. It's unlike anything I've seen, so I decided to restore it and share it for research. Please, watch carefully and keep an open mind." Alex's fingers danced over the keyboard, restoring the corrupted files. Glitches and static danced across the screen, but gradually Ethan's story began to reassemble. His frantic movements, his terrified voice, the haunting echo loop. Yet something felt off. As Alex worked, a faint tapping echoed at the window behind him. At first, it was barely audible, a soft, deliberate tap, tap, tap. He paused, looking toward the glass, but there was nothing outside but the swaying shadows of trees and the slow crawl of fog. "Must be the wind," he muttered, trying to focus. The footage restoration continued, but the screen occasionally flickered with strange distortions. For a moment, Ethan's desperate voice was replaced by a whisper so faint it barely registered. "Thank you for remembering." Alex's breath caught in his throat. Was it just an audio artifact, or something else? The tapping grew louder, more insistent, as if demanding attention. Alex tried to ignore it, but unease settled deep in his bones. The shadows around the room seemed to lengthen, stretching toward him with silent menace. And then the upload stopped. The screen went black. Suddenly, a new file appeared, a single video clip, unnamed, with no explanation. With trembling hands, Alex opened it. On the screen, a shadowy figure stood behind Ethan, too faint to make out clearly. The whisper returned. "Thank you for remembering." The figure moved closer, its shape warping like smoke. Alex turned sharply toward the window, just as a cold wind swept through the room. The tapping stopped. The silence was absolute, unnerving. And then came the words, clear and chilling, but not from the screen. "We keep it alive." Alex's heart pounded, his rational mind battling disbelief, but he could no longer deny what was happening. The entity Ethan had feared, the Hollowed One, was not confined to the forest. It had been awakened by attention, by watching, by remembering. Across the world, in dark rooms and quiet corners, countless viewers had been pulled into the ritual. By hearing the story, by sharing it, they had fed the ancient curse. The Hollowed One's hunger grew stronger. It whispered in the shadows, in the static between channels, in the silence after the last word. And now, it knows your name. The screen flickered again. Alex's voice was no longer steady. "If you hear tapping, if you feel a presence watching you, don't respond. Don't look away. Remember, this story lives because you remember it, because you keep it alive." The screen cracked into static, then darkness.